Hi, this is Felice Cohen. I'll be a keynote speaker at the Tiny House Summit this January. My talk will focus on how to live large in any size space. Before you move into a small home, you need to be prepared both by downsizing your belongings, but also by getting yourself into the right mindset. I should know. I lived in a 90 square foot studio in New York City for 5 years. Turns out living smaller made my life larger. What do I mean by larger? I mean having more time to do the things you love to do. Living in a tiny space afforded me that luxury, but you don't necessarily have to live in a tiny home to enjoy that benefit. One major factor keeping us from living large in any size space is our stuff. Working as a professional organizer for the last 20 years, I have helped many people get rid of their unwanted stuff, and in doing so, gave them more time to enjoy their lives. My hour-long summit talk will be a mixture of thinking and doing. The thinking part will focus on how to approach the concept of living small, while the doing part will be sharing tips on getting rid of actual belongings. Both steps are critical for living in a small space. Preparing yourself mentally is as important, if not more, than discarding physical objects. Just like you will no longer have room for everything you own, there won't be any room for doubt. Understanding why you want to live small or why you just want to live with less is the first critical step. You have to ask yourself, what do I want? To have a closet bursting with clothes I hardly wear? Or do I want to live in a small space, pay a smaller mortgage, and have more time to do what I love and be less stressed? The doing part, the actual culling down of your possessions, requires work too, but it will be easier once you've got your why. But it takes work. We have been weaned on the notion that the American dream is to aspire to live in a big house and fill it with stuff. For many, that dream can turn into a nightmare real quick. All of a sudden, you can't afford the mortgage payments. Your credit card bills pile up, and most of your waking time is spent working to pay for stuff you don't really use. People, not just Americans, are beginning to see that smaller homes with fewer belongings means having more freedom. That's not only a dream, it's an attainable one. Again, whether you want to move into a tiny home or not, you can still live large by freeing yourself of stuff. A lot of people are afraid to downsize. They say, how can I get rid of all this stuff? Where do I begin? I'm overwhelmed. It was expensive. The good news is you're not alone. The other good news is that it is possible and can even be fun. The hard part is just beginning the process, like a diet. But once you begin to see results like more free space, like spending less time cleaning and more time doing what you love, it will motivate you to keep going. Now, I'm not advocating that you get rid of everything and live in an empty room. There is stuff we love, like books and photos and an old Afghan our grandmother crocheted, and we should have them around us. Things have meaning. But when it's time to prepare to move into a tiny home or to clear away extra clutter, this is where having that priority comes into play, that reason for moving or living with less. It acts as a reminder when we're struggling with getting rid of stuff. So before you even toss one old pair of socks, ask yourself why you want to live in a small space or live with less. To save money? Have a smaller carbon footprint? Because it looks like fun? Knowing your reason will act as a reminder when you have a hard time getting rid of stuff, or in case you ever second guess why you moved into a tiny home in the first place. It happens. Living small takes some adjustment. For most of us, it's different from anything we have ever experienced. I moved into my tiny space that was the size of a Honda Accord for one reason. The low rent allowed me to quit my full-time job and finish writing my first book, What Papa Told Me, a memoir about my grandfather, a Holocaust survivor. My plan had been to stay for 1 year. Then I figured I'd get another job and move into a larger apartment. But the first night in the tiny space, I had a panic attack in the loft bed. I paced the small room saying, this place is ridiculous. I can't sleep up there. How can I get out of this lease? Then a friend asked me, why did you move here in the first place? And as soon as I reminded myself of my reason to write about my grandfather and the hardships he endured, all the anxiety went away. I realized this place was paradise compared to what he went through, and after that night, I never had a panic attack again. In fact, something happened during that year. My life got better. My free time went up. I had more time to write, ride my bike, travel, and visit family. My stress went down. And if you can believe it, my savings went up. Aside from the low rent, with limited space, I wasn't buying things because I had no room to put it. And when that year ended, I stayed for another, and another, and another. I loved my lifestyle. The new job and larger apartment could wait. That unintentional housing experiment proved to me that I didn't need a large house filled with stuff to be happy. In fact, the less I had to clean, put away, work to pay for, the happier I became. During the summit, I will go into more detail about preparing to live large in any size space, from finding your priority to simple lessons on how to declutter, including how to get rid of sentimental objects and even those just-in-case items. Before I leave you today, here are 3 simple starter tips to get you decluttering. 1. Can you discard 5 things today? Maybe socks with holes in them or a Tupperware missing a lid. Easy, right? Now, what if you did this every day for a week? That's 35 things. That's a good chunk of clutter gone. The second tip, make it a game. Roll a pair of dice. Whatever number you get, that's how many items you have to get rid of. Now, you can do this in one room, in one closet, or just with sweaters, whatever you want. Number 3, set a timer. Maybe for an hour, or if that's too much, just a half hour. Go through one area. Again, the closet, the garage, just your shoes. When the timer goes off, stop, you're done. Unless, of course, now you're motivated and want to keep going, then by all means, reset the timer and do it again. What these simple exercises do is they remove the burden of thinking you need to get it all done at once. What often happens is once you start to take these baby steps, you get into it and want to keep going. Now, I hope you can join me in January for the Tiny House Summit. And since January is Get Organized Month, it's a great time to get started on either preparing to move into a tiny home or preparing to simply downsize. I'll be sure to include more helpful tips to help you get organized, get rid of clutter, and get you doing more of what you love. Thank you. I look forward to seeing you then.